thrown out in the cold. The cold wind blew through the narrow metal streets of Virex, a planet where the weak were forgotten. Bright signs flashed above, but no one looked down. They passed by the corner where a small alien woman sat, holding two shivering children in her arms. Her name was Kalena. Once she had a warm home, a mate who loved her, and a peaceful life. But after her husband died in the last war, everything changed. Her people called her unlucky and blamed her for his death. Soon her neighbors turned away. Then the council declared her unfit and forced her out. Now she sat in the cold with her two children, Mari and Tovi, pressed close to her chest. Their thin blankets did nothing against the freezing air. Tovi, her youngest, coughed again, a deep, dry sound that shook his small body. Kalena looked around. No one stopped. Some aliens stared in disgust. Others laughed. A guard passed by and said coldly, "Move. This area is for workers, not street trash." She lowered her head. She had no food, no water, no place to go. That night she found shelter behind a trash crate near a repair garage. The smell was bad, but at least it blocked the wind. She held her children tightly and whispered, "Just one more night. Just one more." Inside the nearby garage, a human worked under the bright lights. His name was David, a mechanic who repaired old starships and cargo drones. He was quiet, hard-working, and didn't bother anyone. As he walked outside to throw out some scraps, he heard a small noise, a cough, then a whimper. He paused. Again, the sound came. He followed it slowly and peeked behind the crate. There, huddled in the shadows, he saw them. A mother. Two children, all alien, all cold and shaking. The woman's eyes met his, wide, glowing, and full of fear. David didn't speak at first. He slowly took off his jacket and held it out. The woman did not move. "I'm not here to hurt you," he said softly. "Take it, please, it's freezing out." Still, she didn't trust him. "I'm Kalena," she whispered. "They will punish me if I take from a human." David frowned. "Who will? You have kids with you. This is not about rules. It's about survival." One of the children cried. The little girl looked hungry and cold. David sighed, stepped forward, and gently placed his jacket over the boy. Kalena didn't stop him. David returned with a hot food pack. He opened it and let the warmth rise into the air. Kalena watched as steam curled into the night sky. "Eat this," he said, handing her the warm packet. Kalena hesitated. She had always been told humans were selfish, dangerous, but this one wasn't. She took the food, broke it into 3 pieces, fed her children first. "Thank you," she said, her voice shaking. Why are you helping us?" David looked at her with tired eyes. "Because no one else will." Later, that night, Kalena stayed behind the crate with her kids. David stayed inside his garage watching from the window. He couldn't sleep. Why had they been thrown out like that? He had seen the alien society's cruelty before. If someone was different or unlucky, they were cast away. No one questioned it. No one cared. But David had always believed in second chances. The next morning, David found Kalena still there. Her son's cough had gotten worse. Her daughter didn't move much. He opened the garage door. "You can't stay out here," he said. "Bring them inside, it's warm, I have spare blankets." Kalena looked around, she had no choice. Her children were dying. She picked them up and followed David into the garage. It was small but clean. Tools lined the walls. A small heater hummed in the corner. David quickly made a space with blankets and soft mats. Kalena sat down, holding her kids. She didn't speak. David poured water into a cup and handed it to her. "Stay as long as you need." Tears filled her eyes. "You don't even know me," David shrugged. "I don't need to. I see someone who needs help, that's enough." Outside, the cold wind blew stronger. But inside the garage, for the first time in many nights, Kalena and her children were safe. She didn't know what tomorrow would bring. But tonight, they were warm, and that was a start. The warmth of a stranger. Kalena woke up to warmth she hadn't felt in many cycles. A soft mat lay under her body. Her children were wrapped in real blankets, not torn cloth. For a moment, she forgot where she was. Then she saw the walls, tools, wires, blinking lights. Not her home, the human's garage. She quickly sat up, heart racing. Her eyes searched for danger, but instead she found Tovi sleeping quietly and Mari clutching a small stuffed toy someone had given her. Her lips curved into a weak smile. Her children looked peaceful. That peace was broken by a strange smell. Something cooking. She turned and saw the human David standing near a small heat stove. He was cooking a flat round thing in a pan. "You're awake," he said with a calm voice. "I hope you're hungry." Kalena stood slowly, unsure. I shouldn't have stayed. I will leave." David didn't stop cooking. "You're not a prisoner. You're a guest. And guests eat." She blinked. "But why? I am not like you. I'm not even from your species." David turned and gave a small smile. "That doesn't mean you don't deserve kindness." He served them. The warm food, pancakes he called them. Mari was the first to eat, giggling as syrup stuck to her fingers. Tovi followed, still sniffling but no longer coughing as much. Kalena took a bite and gasped. It was sweet, soft, warm, something her children hadn't tasted in weeks. Tears gathered in her eyes, but she blinked them away. David watched quietly, not speaking too much. He didn't ask personal questions. He just made sure they were warm, fed, and safe. Later that morning, Kalena sat outside the garage with a blanket over her shoulders. Sunlight touched her face, and for the first time in many days, it didn't feel cruel. David was working nearby, fixing a broken drone. Sparks flew as he tightened bolts. She watched him, curious. "Why do you live here alone?" He shrugged. "I like machines more than most people. They don't judge." Kalena understood that feeling too well. "Your people, they don't hate you for helping us?" she asked carefully. David sighed and set his tools down. "Some do. Some think I'm a traitor. Others think I'm strange, but I don't care." He looked her in the eyes. "What they think doesn't matter. What I do does." Kalena looked down. "You sound like someone I once knew." "Your mate?" David asked gently. She nodded, then quickly changed the subject. "Do you always help strangers?" "Only the ones who don't deserve what's been done to them." David offered her a small task, sorting spare bolts and wires. It wasn't hard. She agreed quietly, wanting to help. She didn't want to feel useless. Hours passed, and for a moment it felt almost normal. Mari drew pictures on the floor with chalk. Tovi played with old radio parts. Kalena smiled without noticing, until a loud knock shattered the peace. David opened the garage door. Outside stood two alien patrol officers, tall, armored, and cold-eyed. One of them pointed at Kalena. "This female is from Sector 7, yes?" David nodded slowly. "She is listed as a non-resident. She has no legal home. She is not allowed to stay in registered buildings." Kalena stood up, clutching her children. Her heart pounded. David stepped forward. "She's my guest." "You're human," the officer sneered. "You have no authority to host banned aliens." "She's done nothing wrong," David said firmly. "She has children. They were freezing outside." The officers looked at each other. "Then take responsibility. If anything happens, it's on you. Don't say we didn't warn you." With that, they turned and walked away. Kalena's hands shook. "I should leave. I will bring trouble." David's voice was calm but strong. "You leave, and your children suffer. I won't let that happen." "But why?" she asked, almost crying. "Why do you fight for someone like me?" David didn't speak for a long time, then he said, "Because once I was alone too. No one helped me. I swore I'd never be like them." That night, Kalena cleaned the garage. Not because she had to, but because she wanted to. She felt something she hadn't in a long time. Dignity. She was still scared, still unsure of the future. But for now, she had a roof. Her children had warmth, and the human stranger, who had no reason to care, had given her more than food or shelter. He had given her hope. She entered the human's world. The sky of Virex was dark red as the second sun dipped below the city towers. In the heart of a quiet mechanic shop, Kalena stood before a mirror made from polished metal. She didn't recognize herself. Her face looked cleaner, her eyes less hollow. Her children were asleep on soft blankets. For the first time in many weeks, no one called her cursed or unfit. She was still afraid, but she was alive. And it was all because of David, the human. That morning he had handed her a clean shirt, plain, gray but warm. "You don't have to keep wearing the torn one," he said. "You're part of this shop now, if you want." Kalena had paused. Part of this shop? She wasn't sure what he meant. In her world, aliens like her weren't part of anything. They were forgotten. But she took the shirt. David showed her how to use simple tools. Fixing old drones, sorting wires, cleaning engine filters. It was honest work. Her fingers weren't used to it. But she learned fast. She wanted to prove she wasn't weak. Every hour she worked, David treated her with quiet respect. He didn't speak much, but when he did, he was kind. One afternoon, he gave her a small box with buttons. "It's a translator," he said. "Makes it easier to talk. You don't have to struggle." She held the device like it was treasure. "You got this for me?" He nodded. "You're helping. You deserve to be heard." Kalena's daughter, Mari, had also changed. She laughed more, drew pictures on old scrapboards. One showed a tall man holding a little girl's hand beside a starship. "That's David," Mari told her proudly. "He fixed the broken ship, and then he flew us to a new home." Kalena smiled softly. Maybe he will. Her son, Tovi, had stopped coughing as much. David had given him warm soup and a soft pillow. Every night he tucked the children in like they were his own. Kalena watched from the corner, her heart full of silent gratitude. But outside the garage, the city still whispered. Word was spreading. The cursed woman sleeps in a human's den. She serves him for food. She has no honor left. One day, Kalena stepped out to get water and heard two alien women laughing behind her. "She's his pet now," one sneered. "Disgusting." Kalena didn't speak. She just walked away, head low. But inside, her soul burned. That evening, David found her scrubbing the garage floor too hard, hands shaking. "Did something happen?" he asked. Kalena didn't answer. After a pause, she whispered, "They said, I have no honor." David put down his tools and came closer. "Who decides what honor means? Them or you?" She looked at him with tired eyes. "In my world, I am nothing." "In mine," David said firmly, "you're a mother, you're strong, and you're not nothing." His words weren't loud, but they settled deep inside her heart, like a small fire refusing to go out. One night, a storm hit the city. Thunder shook the sky and acid rain poured down. The garage roof leaked in 2 places. David rushed to cover the weak spots. Kalena helped, climbing up with him. For the first time they laughed together, wet, cold, but proud of saving their tiny shelter. "You're not bad at this," David teased. Kalena laughed. "I was a pilot's wife. I used to repair minor ship damage." David smiled. "That explains a lot. You learn fast." That night after drying off, David pulled out a flat screen. "There's an old Earth movie. You might like it." Kalena sat beside her children, unsure what to expect. But soon she was laughing, crying. The story of a small family fighting to stay together hit too close to home. She didn't know human stories could feel like hers. After the movie, Mari hugged David's arm and whispered, "Can you be our hero too?" David looked surprised. Then he gently nodded. I'll try. Later, when the children were asleep, Kalena sat quietly beside David. You fixed machines? She said. Now, you're fixing us too. David chuckled. You're not broken, Kalena. Just hurt. She looked at him with soft, shining eyes. Then, thank you for seeing the difference. Outside, the storm still raged. But inside the garage, warmth remained. Not just from heaters, but from something stronger. Something called trust. And Kalena, who once had no home, now stepped fully into the human's world, where kindness was stronger than judgment. Whispers and threats, it started with a stare. One morning, Kalena went out to get food rations from the lower market. She wrapped herself in a long scarf and kept her head low. The streets of Virex were busy, loud, and cold. Neon signs flashed, offers no poor alien could afford. At first, no one noticed her, but then she felt it, that burn on her back. Someone was watching. She turned. 2 alien males stood near a power pole, eyes locked on her. Their skin was marked with the old warrior sigils, symbols of the city's upper clans. She knew those signs. She had once belonged to that world, but now she was a disgrace to it. One of them whispered something and smirked. Kalena clutched the ration card tightly and hurried away. Back at the garage, David noticed something was wrong. You're shaking, he said, handing her a cup of warm herbal tea. Kalena nodded but didn't speak. She didn't want to bring danger to his place. She didn't want him involved in her old world's cruelty. They were just looking, she said quietly. It's nothing. But that night, someone scratched the garage wall with a sharp object, unpure. David stared at the mark in silence. He didn't ask who did it. He simply brought out a metal sheet and covered it. Kalena stood beside him. They're warning me. David didn't look at her. No, they're trying to scare you. That's different. The next day, David taught her how to fix a hovercart engine. Kalena focused hard, wiping sweat from her forehead. She liked this work. She liked learning. It gave her a sense of control again, but the peace didn't last. As she stepped out, for fresh air, a rock flew past her head and slammed into the garage wall. She spun around. A group of 3 alien youths stood across the street laughing. One of them shouted, "Human pet! Did he teach you to beg too?" Kalena didn't reply. She turned her back and walked inside. David had seen it too. I'm reporting them, he said, walking toward the console. No, Kalena said quickly. If you do, they'll send others. Stronger ones, please. David looked at her for a long moment. You're not alone anymore, Kalena. That evening, David taught her how to lock the doors from inside. He added extra barriers near the children's sleeping corner. They didn't tell Mari or Tovi what was happening, but the kids could feel the tension in the air. Kalena watched David weld a new lock onto the side panel. You shouldn't have to do this, she said. David smiled slightly. Neither should you. Later that night, Kalena sat beside her sleeping children. Her hands trembled. She remembered the day the council had thrown her out. Cold faces. No mercy. They said she brought bad luck. They said her children would spread it. They had left her with nothing. And now she had something again. Not much, but something real. She didn't want to lose it. She didn't want to lose him. The next morning, Kalena walked to the garage door and stared out into the street. She waited. Soon the same 2 alien males from the market appeared again. They walked past slowly, eyes meeting hers, as if daring her to react. She didn't move. But as they passed, one of them whispered, You're going to fall again, cursed one. No human can protect you forever. David stood behind her. They won't stop, she whispered. No, he agreed. So what do you want to do? Kalena turned to him. I want to learn more. Be useful. If they come, I don't want to hide behind you. I want to stand beside you. David gave a small smile. Then let's get to work. From that day on, Kalena trained harder. She fixed wires, read engine maps, and practiced defense drills David taught her. She helped repair a full cargo loader by herself. And when it powered on, David clapped softly. "See?" he said. "You're stronger than they ever knew." She smiled, but only a little, because she knew the real test hadn't come yet. The real danger was still waiting, in the shadows of Virex. But this time she wouldn't face it alone. A choice of courage. The night was quiet. Too quiet. Kalena sat by the heater, gently brushing her son Tovi's hair as he slept. His breathing was weak, slow, uneven. His body felt hot. Too hot. And he had stopped eating that morning. She placed her hand on his forehead. Burning. Her heart dropped. She had seen this before. A desert fever that spread quickly among weak children. On Virex, the cure was simple, but only if treated early. She knew where the medicine could be found. But she also knew the rules. No alien without registration could get medical help, especially not from humans. Kalena turned to David, who was working late at the repair bench. His hands were covered in grease, his face tired. But when he saw her eyes, he stood up instantly. "What's wrong?" She swallowed her fear. "Tovi, he's very sick." David came closer and gently touched the boy's head. "He's burning up. We need help now." "There's medicine," she whispered. "But they won't give it to someone like me." David nodded once. "Then I'll go." "No," she said quickly. "If they catch you helping me again, they might ban you from working or worse." David stared at the sleeping boy, then at Kalena. His voice was quiet, but steady. "He's just a child. That's all that matters to me." Within minutes, David grabbed his coat and left. Kalena sat by the door trembling. She didn't want him to go alone, but she had no choice. Time passed slowly. Every second felt like a weight on her chest. Then, shouting. She rushed to the door and saw lights flashing in the street. 2 security drones zipped past. Her heart stopped. David didn't return until 2 hours later. He was bleeding from his arm, his shirt ripped. He held a sealed medicine kit. In his hand, Kalena ran to him. "You're hurt." "I'm fine," he said, breathing heavily. "They saw me. I ran. I didn't let them take it." She stared at him. "You risked everything." He handed her the kit. "No, I chose what mattered." She opened the box with shaking hands and gave the dose to Tovi. Within minutes, his breathing eased. The red flush on his face faded. His little fingers moved. Kalena covered her mouth and cried, not from fear, from relief. The next day, the garage door was marked with a new symbol, an ancient alien warning for traitor protector. David simply cleaned the wall and got back to work. But Kalena couldn't stay silent anymore. That evening, she walked out into the city square and stood before the community post board. She pressed her hand to the scanner. It beeped. The screen lit up. Rejected. Non-registered citizen. Access denied. Still, she looked into the nearby public camera, and she spoke. "My name is Kalena. My people threw me out when I lost my mate. They called me cursed. They let my children starve." She paused, then added, "But a human gave me shelter. He gave us food. He gave my son medicine. When the rest of you turned away, he saved us." People stopped to listen. "I don't ask for your approval," she said, voice firm. "I ask for your conscience." Then she walked away. Back at the garage, David watched the broadcast on a small screen. His jaw was tight. "They'll come for you now." Kalena stood straight. "Let them." David looked at her, surprised. She wasn't trembling anymore. She had chosen courage. Later that night, the door buzzed. Kalena opened it slowly. Outside stood an elderly alien woman, not someone she knew. The woman held out a small package. "For the child," she said quietly. "I saw your message." Kalena took the gift with both hands. heart racing. More knocks followed in the days ahead. A spare blanket, food packs, even a small toy for Mari. Not everyone believed the lies anymore. That week, David showed her how to repair a fusion core, a dangerous job. He handed her the gloves and smiled. Ready? She nodded. Teach me. As they worked side by side, sparks flew around them. But Kalena didn't flinch, because fear was no longer her master. Now, she had something stronger, the will to protect, the courage to fight back, the trial of mercy. The message came at dawn. Cold metal drone hovered outside the garage, flashing red lights across the walls. It dropped a small silver cube and flew off. David picked up the cube and pressed the center. A voice played. Robotic but final. Human David Carter, you are summoned for violating cross-species medical regulations. You will appear before the Sector Tribunal in 12 hours. Kalena stood frozen. Tovi had barely recovered. Mari clung to her leg. And now the one person who had saved them all was being punished for it. I'll go, David said calmly. Kalena shook her head. No. I will speak. It was my child, my life, my fault. David looked at her gently. You weren't allowed to speak before. They'll only listen now because I'm involved. She stepped closer. Then let them hear us both. The tribunal. Room was carved in polished stone with high seats and glowing panels. Alien judges in gold robes sat above. Their faces were blank, cold. Dozens of citizens watched from behind glass. Some whispered. Others stared at Kalena with thinly veiled hate. David stood tall. His arm was still wrapped from the injury he'd taken while stealing the medicine. Kalena stood beside him, her head uncovered for the first time. The head judge spoke. David Carter, you gave classified medical aid to an alien with no registration, no citizen record, and no approval from this council. Why? David didn't hesitate. Because her son was dying. A murmur ran through the watchers. You broke the law. The judge said flatly. Then the law is broken, David replied. Because a child's life should matter more than paper rules. Another murmur, louder this time. The judge turned to Kalena. And you, Kalena of fallen clan Sitar, do you admit to hiding in human territory and receiving illegal care? Kalena stepped forward. Her voice did not shake. Yes. The judge narrowed his eyes. Then why are you here? Because I was left to die by my own people. Because no one came when my children cried. Because the human didn't ask who I was. He only saw that I was suffering. She looked directly into the judge's eyes. You call it illegal. I call it mercy. Silence filled the hall. Then a voice from the audience shouted, She's lying! Humans protect their own. Why would one help her? A second voice responded, Because we didn't. The judges looked unsettled. One of them leaned forward. David Carter, do you regret your actions? David didn't blink. No, I regret not doing it sooner. The room buzzed again. The head judge raised his hand. Enough. The tribunal will decide. Kalena and David were led to a waiting chamber. The door locked behind them. Kalena sank to a bench. They'll punish you. Because of me. David sat beside her. If they do, then at least we made them listen. She looked at him. No one ever stood beside me like this before. David gave her a small smile. Then I hope I'm just the first. An hour later, the decision was made. The judge returned to the center platform. By majority vote, we find David Carter guilty of medical violation. However, due to public support, humanitarian cause, and the minor's survival, punishment is suspended. Gasps echoed across the room. The judge continued. Kalena is granted temporary residence in neutral Sector 12, under full human sponsorship. Her children are not to be harmed or separated. Kalena covered her mouth, unable to speak. David nodded slowly. The judge finished. This is not a reward, it is a warning. We will be watching. Outside the tribunal building, a small crowd had gathered. Some cheered, others cursed. But Kalena walked forward with her chin high, holding her daughter's hand. David walked beside her, his arm lightly touching her back to guide her. Reporters rushed forward. One asked, "Kalena, do you feel you've won?" She stopped. "No," she said softly. "But I feel my children have a future." And that was enough. That night, in their small room in the neutral zone, Kalena tucked her children into bed. David sat near the window watching the stars. She came beside him and sat in silence. "You changed everything," she whispered. David shook his head. "We changed everything." Kalena leaned her head against his shoulder. "What comes next?" David looked up at the stars. "Whatever it is, we face it together." And under the quiet sky of Virex, two souls once cast aside by society had stood before judgment and walked away unbroken. A new home, a new hope. The sky above Sector 12 was not beautiful. It was gray, filled with smoke from old ship engines and repair dust. The buildings were metal boxes, stacked like crates. No flowers grew here, no songs were sung. But to Kalena, it was the most beautiful place she had ever lived, because for the first time no one spat at her. No one called her children cursed. And she had a roof, her own roof, because one human had refused to walk away. The new room David helped her rent was small, but clean. It had a heater, 2 beds, and even a second-hand food processor. Kalena cleaned every corner with care. She fixed a broken light. She washed the blankets twice. It was not because she was afraid, it was because this place was hers. Not a gift, not a cage, a chance. David came by every evening, always bringing something small, a toolkit, leftover, food, a book for Mari. One evening he entered holding a surprise, a small glowing sign. He placed it on her wall. It read, "Kalena's Repairs and Parts. Honest work, honest heart." Kalena gasped. "You named it after me?" David nodded. "You're good with machines. You have skills. Let people see that." Her hands trembled as she touched the sign. She had been called many things in her life: burden, unfit, unlucky. But never before had anyone called her honest. Word spread slowly through Sector 12. First came the human woman with the broken cleaner bot. Then a young alien boy with a damaged comlink. Kalena fixed them both with care and kindness. She never asked for more than fair trade. People began to return, not out of pity, but out of trust. Some still looked at her with suspicion, but others nodded with respect. The garage turned into a proper shop, and Kalena turned into something she never thought she could be again. Useful, respected, needed. One evening, as David helped her organize tools, Mari ran up holding a drawing. It was a picture of all 4 of them, Kalena, David, Mari, and Tovi, standing outside the shop. "We're a team," she shouted happily. Kalena smiled. "Yes, we are." Tovi, now healthy, tugged at David's coat. "Will you stay for food tonight?" David looked at Kalena, silently asking permission. She nodded. "Stay." That night they shared a simple meal. Laughter echoed off metal walls. There was no fancy furniture, no feast, but there was peace. There was family. Later, after the children slept, Kalena stood outside under the pale sector lights. David joined her, leaning on the railing. "Did you ever think," she said softly, "when you found me behind your garage, that it would come to this?" David smiled faintly. "I didn't think at all. I just knew I couldn't walk away." She turned to him. "You gave me more than shelter, David. You gave me a reason to keep going." He met her eyes. "You didn't need me to survive. You just needed someone to remind you that you could." She stepped closer, her voice quiet but steady. "You reminded me what it felt like to matter." A few weeks later, Kalena received a message. A council hearing. This time not a trial, but a public recognition. Her case had sparked debate. Other rejected aliens had come forward. Some humans had offered shelter. Even certain alien leaders had begun to question the cruelty of the old rules. The council invited her to speak again, not to defend herself but to share her story. She looked at David. "I'll go," she said. "Not just for me, but for every mother who still hides in the shadows." David nodded. "I'll be there." At the hearing, Kalena stood tall, in a clean gray jumpsuit. She held Mari's hand in one and a small toolkit in the other. She told the truth about the cold, about the fear, about the human who offered his coat without asking her name. She finished with this: "My people threw me away, but a human gave me space, warmth, and dignity. Now I build machines. I help others. I belong somewhere again. Not because I changed who I was, but because someone believed I was worth saving." There was silence, then slow clapping. Not all, but enough. And that was the start of something new. Months later, Kalena's shop had a waiting list. Her children went to school. Human and alien students mixed for the first time in Sector 12. Kalena trained other rejected aliens in her garage. She paid her rent. She even helped David build a second shop next door. Sometimes people still judged her, but more often, they respected her. And late at night, when the tools were quiet and the lights dimmed, Kalena would watch her children sleep in safety, while David sat nearby quietly fixing something or sipping warm tea, and she would whisper the words she never thought she'd say again. "We're home."